NurseHack4Health Pitch-A-Thon. If you haven't been following the work that Sancio, J&J, and Microsoft have been doing since 2020, when the heart of the pandemic hit, NurseHack4Health led off by J&J and Microsoft in an attempt to allow nurses to innovate on the front lines in a safe way. And since that time of May 2020, we have actually organized 4 virtual hackathons, which led to the participation of thousands of nurses from around the world calling in and spending a weekend with us, hacking the problems that they were seeing on the front lines of COVID and figuring out solutions to the problems that they needed solved so they could operate their jobs. What we realized is as they came out of these weekends identifying these problems, they came up with brilliant solutions, but many of them failed to find their inside champions within their health systems to help them identify ways that could drive meaningful change within their systems. So this is why this hackathon has evolved to a pitch-a-thon and why we're here talking with you all today. Because the goal is that if we move this forward and we have internal buy-in, allow the idea of nurse-led innovation to come up to redesign a healthy work environment where a workforce can thrive. Nurse-led innovation as adopted by health systems can truly solve the nursing crisis that we're facing today. So let me introduce to you our co-champions who are participating today. Kathleen McGraw is the Chief Nursing Informaticist Officer from Microsoft. She'll be speaking shortly. Linda Bentelin, Senior Director, Johnson & Johnson. Myself, and then Kasia Laskowski, the Executive Director for Thrive Global Foundation, First Responders All In, who made this financial capability possible. You'll be hearing from all of us. Just to give you a high level, here's today's agenda. We're doing the welcome. We're going to introduce you to what actually a pitch-a-thon is, how it's going to be run, the judging criteria, our ask, and questions and answers for all of you to get those questions answered that you may not have them at the end of it. So at a very, very high level, I'm turning this over so Kathleen McGraw can dive into what is a pitch-a-thon. Thank you for being here. Kathleen?
Thanks, Rebecca. I really appreciate that. So as Rebecca stated, previously we've done hackathon over a weekend. So pitch-a-thon is actually where we have the opportunity to gather interdisciplinary teams and work collaboratively on innovations or ideas that we may have had for many amounts of time, many months or years, or something that you just didn't know how to identify it and action on it. So this is the ability to have the opportunity to lead a team through an innovation, and the process will be, or the end game will be the pitch-a-thon, and then the pitch essentially will be wrapped into everything that Linda is going to talk about. So on the next slide, I just want to talk a little bit about what's going to happen and what we need to talk about and what we need to learn about. And this is really important because really the tenet of this is really around what we've been facing or what our clinicians have been facing over the past months and years, as you know. Burnout is a reaction to prolonged or chronic job stress, and it's characterized by 3 main dimensions: exhaustion, cynicism, and a feeling of reduced professional ability. And some of the needs that can address burnout include resilience, workforce flexibility, capacity, and strategy. So really, we've identified 4 evidence-based areas to support workforce well-being. So the end game really is to identify a solution or innovation that can become a solution once you've done your pitch and you could have developed it, and then it would really emphasize workforce well-being. So if we go into the next slide, we can talk a little bit about why your organizations should participate in this. And this is really important. This is an opportunity that over the past few years, as I had said previously, it's been unlike anything our healthcare system has ever experienced it. Through it all, nurses and physicians and all the team members at our hospital organizations and our health systems have really continued to demonstrate that they're committed very steadfastly to caring for patients and communities and leverage their skill and their compassion. So we really need to look and understand at the lessons learned that we've had so we can clearly look at how our dedicated workforce is the backbone for our healthcare system, and that really how do we deliver high quality patient care depending on the ability of many things. And that goes back to the 4 evidence-based areas to support workforce well-being around adjusting expectations. There are non-normal times that we're going through right now, getting rid of the stupid stuff, how do we improve efficiency or improve environment, get radical to shore up staffing, and EAP is not enough, we need to do more. So we know that healthcare providers and nurses especially are best able to innovate and create when working in their clinical areas. And we want to be able to facilitate you to be able to do that. We want to enable you to help address the foundational changes behind the crisis that we're experiencing now by forming an interdisciplinary team, being nurse-led, being able to ideate on solutions, form plans, and pitch your ideas with the goal of securing that prize that's at the end of the game so that we can actually develop a solution and move forward. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Linda now.
Great, thanks, Kathleen. So as Kathleen mentioned, I mean, certainly this is not just a situation we're going to say we're doing a pitch-a-thon, have at it. We are really making sure that we're taking very measured steps along the way to really set teams up for success, because we realize this may be the first time that many people may be participating in something called a pitch-a-thon. So what I'm going to take you through the next several slides is just the step-by-step process and the due dates and things that we will offer to support teams along the way. So we'll go to the next slide. And it starts with the eligibility form, which you could find if you go to NurseHack4Health.org. You will find the Apply Now button, I believe, in the top right corner. And that's the important first step. In order to be eligible to participate in this endeavor, you have to be connected with a 501c3 or have a fiscal partner that would be eligible to receive the funding. That's step number one, because that's how the grant process has to work for us. The second thing is that we are requiring that these teams are nurse-led. Now, also encouraging strongly that the teams are interdisciplinary, because we think there's really great ideas when you have different people with different backgrounds and perspectives coming together to help solve for this. But we, as you can imagine, always firmly believe in the power of having a nurse-led team, because we know that nurses obviously are closest to the challenges as well as the opportunities to solve. So what's going to happen is you're going to go and hit that apply button on nursehack4health.org. You'll fill out some basic information, including the 501c3 and the fact that you have a nurse-led team. And then if everything matches up in terms of the 501c3, which is done on the back end, your team will get an automatic notification that you're cleared to move on to step 2. So that's step 1. Move to the next slide. Okay, so someone had asked a couple of questions about this already in the chat. So, and you'll see all these dates are also on the NurseHack4Health.org website. But what we're offering up, again, to set people up for success and answer some of the basic questions, is to offer these mandatory info/pitch prep sessions. So they're all basically the same. There's just 7 different dates to choose from, depending on when your team is ready to get involved. So again, once you have submitted the eligibility form and you've gotten the okay to go, the easy way to sign up for this is you go to nursehack4health.org. You will see this on, I think it's on the resources pages. You'll see it and you can click on it where it says information pitch prep. You just click on that and it will give you a little drop down to add to your calendar. So you're not formally registering, it'll just lock up time on your calendar. But there's a variety of dates to choose from to do that. Okay, what we're going to cover at those sessions will be an overview in terms of, what's going to be required for the pitch, as well as how to create the pitch deck. So some good basic information that, again, is mandatory for all teams who are going to participate in this process. Next slide. Okay, so after you go through those prep sessions, the final application is going to be due on August 18th. And there's 3 things you're going to need for that. One is the application, which, as I mentioned, is already on the nursehack4health.org website. There's also a pitch deck that we're going to be asking you for, and I'm going to share with you, I think it's on the next slide, the 9 different components of that pitch deck to make it super simple and easy for people to understand how to construct your story, your pitch, so that there's a consistent set of information that the panels will be looking at as they judge the entries coming in. But then a really cool part of this is the pitch video that we're also requiring as part of the submission, which is a 7-minute pitch video. And I think this is a great thing because for any of us, to get in front of a camera can be nerve-wracking, especially if you're talking about individuals who don't do it on a regular basis. But it's a really great way to practice your pitches, to get your story down, to be super clear. And it also makes it easier for our panelists to look at the different submissions as well. So those are the 3 things: the application, the pitch deck, which I'm going to take you through in just a moment, and the 7-minute pitch video. Those are all due by August 18th. And again, we're going to provide support to you along the way, answer questions to make sure you're set up for success. Next slide, please. Okay, so here is the pitch flow. As I mentioned, these are the 9 core slides. I think you can have up to 14. if you need it, but it's pretty straightforward. And this is a great way to kind of get comfortable with, how to pitch and solution that you're really looking forward to bringing forward. What I see a lot of times, and we've done the Nurse Hack for Health events in the past, people come, automatically to a solution without really thinking through and peeling back the layers of the onion on the problem first. So this is a great way to start really putting your idea together. And it's going to really help the teams really, I think, be very clear about the problem they're looking to address, the solution that they're offering up, how it's differentiated, the budget, et cetera, et cetera. So very straightforward, simple stuff, but it's going to be short, sweet, and super crisp. Next slide. Okay, so for the Pitch-A-Thon video requirements, again, this is the video that's due as part of the submission by August 18th. It's 7 minutes long. And what we're asking is that teams will be using the slide deck that they're going to create using the template that I just mentioned, and then doing a recording on Zoom, Microsoft Teams, et cetera, and then exporting the video to us so that we can then obviously take a look at it. One thing that's super critical, because we want to make sure that we are looking at things in a very matter-of-fact way, is we're asking, it's very important that teams not film themselves during the pitch recording. We just want their voice. Because again, that takes any of the background, I'll call it bias, out of the system. If someone knows someone or what have you, we just want it to be a straight pitch. So hopefully that's super clear. And of course, we will continue to reinforce that as we talk with the teams over the next month or two. And then of course, there's more background resources you can find on Nurse Hack for Health in terms of how to craft the perfect pitch, to kind of study up ahead of time. But again, the team will be ready to help support at our additional mentoring sessions. So if we'll go to the next slide. This is the other thing that we're offering in addition to the baseline informational sessions that was a slide I shared, 4 or 5 slides ago, that was mandatory. These are additional mentoring opportunities. We realize that, again, for some teams, there's going to be a lot of questions about pitch development, could be design thinking, it could be tech questions, it could be just something about general support. So the way you apply to these sessions, these are office hours that where our teams are reserving our time to man them. What you need to do is to go to the Nurse Hack for Health website, and you'll see that there you can see the URLs on the left-hand side. There's a quick form to fill out, and it'll say your name, your team, and then you basically need to put in, are you looking for tech support? Are you looking for design thinking support, pitch development support? Again, just for us to know who's coming to those individual sessions and what type of help you're looking for. So we'll be there to kind of guide along the way. Okay, next slide. And then by September 16th, what's going to happen between August 18th and September 16th is that we will have an initial review of the applications and the pitch videos as a way to kind of hone things and whittle down the list to a select group of teams who will then be invited to the final virtual pitch session taking place on October 6th. And once we have notified those teams will be offered additional pitch coaching so that they're ready for that October 6th session. Okay, and there we have it. So on the actual date on October 6th, it's a virtual live pitch. And that's where you will have the opportunity to present your concepts to a panel of expert panelists who are knowledgeable in this space, and where teams can get grant funding of up to $250,000 through the First Responders First Fund to help, again, bring these ideas to life in the health systems where everyone, is basing these concepts coming from. The stipulation is that this grant that you're requesting has to be used between January 1 of 23 and December 1 of 2023 as well. And one additional thing I want to add as well, because everyone always, asks a lot of questions about the funds and what have you. I want to be super clear, and this is coming from all of us, that, certainly there's a really nice pot of funds that are going to be available to teams. But it's very important as teams are putting their concepts together that it's not, I have this idea and I'm going to just put in a budget of 250,000. Maybe your idea needs 50, maybe it needs 100, maybe it needs 250, maybe it needs a different number. We're really going to ask teams to make sure that they're managing their budget appropriately to ask for the funds that you truly need to get this project off the ground in that first year period, to enable other teams to have access, if possible, to the funds as well. So just be realistic and, in terms of what you think you need to sincerely get your project off the ground. Okay, so for there, I'm going to take it. That's your 5 easy steps. I'm going to turn things over to Rebecca Love to talk about the judging criteria.
So as Linda said, we're really hoping to set you up for success. We know this is a relatively new process for so many of us. And what we're really looking at is we know a lot of the time that solutions that have come to try to solve problems for the nursing workforce often fail because the nursing voice is not there. But the truth is nurses have not necessarily been taught, how do you do a pitch? How do you actually manage a budget? How do you actually meet these criteria? So why we put together all of this mentorship, all of this engagement is so that you can be successful. And we're hoping that you are as excited about helping develop this leadership team within your system. In a sense, we really think it's going to be much like a mini MBA, in all honesty, for them to be successful on what they're learning on solving a problem, putting a plan into place, and managing a budget, which I think we all know is very important in today's world. So how are we going to judge this entire team? How are we going to pick the best of what is going to be what we know absolutely remarkable ideas? The truth is it's going to come down to 7 key areas. So the first is going to be alignment with the NurseHack4Health Pitch-A-Thon focus areas, which is all along workforce sustainability around your entire wellness and wellness of your workforce. Number 2 is impact. We want to make sure what you're working on is driving really strong internal potential cultural change. We know that's not an easy thing to do, but did the submission seem likely to make a significant improvement that will lead to the well-being of the healthcare workers and or the workplace environment? Number 3 is the rationale and evidence. Does the submission provide sound rationale and an evidence-based basis for the development of the program? Now, we're not talking that you need nursing evidence-based practice. We're talking about perhaps you want to sit there and say, external to healthcare, there's 5 examples of this kind of model that has worked well in these other ones. Prove it out to us. We're not necessarily going to sit there and say it has to be shown that it's been proven in healthcare environments, but it might be you say, hey, you know what, we saw the best at Microsoft and what they did in their culture, or J&J or Google, or whoever that is. Pull that forward and show that evidence is actually shown to do this differently. Number 4 is reach. The truth is it is going to make a large impact across your health system with an intended outcome. We're not necessarily looking for something that might just revolutionize the top tier of your structure, but is this going to revolutionize everything for your new grads or everything from your leadership transition? Is it going to stabilize the workforce between the ages of 30 and 45 in a way that we haven't focused on before? Make sure that we have wide swaths of what is that impacted reach looking like. Lastly, we're going to be looking at your outcomes and your evaluation. Does the submission describe appropriate evaluations, methods, and measures for monitoring the effects of well-being and other appropriate metrics specific to the proposal? So how are you measuring success? What quality metrics, how are you going to be able to measure against it and actually show sustainable change? Feasibility. We know that there's a lot of great ideas, and why we're asking you all to be here is we recognize that we need these wraparound teams. We've had so many thousands of nurses come to us, as we mentioned, with brilliant ideas, but they couldn't get the buy-in from those that they needed to drive this change within their systems. So we need to hear from you, feasibility-wise, what resources and submission and teams and budgets and resources from that standpoint will you be allocating to support this to actually be implemented? And then lastly, what we recognize, and I think what we all know as nurses who've been on the front lines, is so many times we've rolled out something for a short period of time, we've been forced to adapt it, and then 6 months later to a year later, that entire program is going by the wayside, and it further burns out our workforce. We think that you leading this, bringing the nurses to the forefront of this conversation, we want to show that you are going to implement and create a sustainable program that's nurse-led to drive this change. Because we think the institutions that come through this program and implement these programs are probably going to be the most successful programs and places for nurses to work in the country, and that's what we hope for you. So we're committing ourselves, most of us largely volunteers, to be 100% honest. You're going to meet some of them, everyone from Hiam Nadell to Marianne Leary to amazing volunteers across the space to spend time with you to make sure that you have success here. But we're asking your health system to commit to creating that place and environment where you are. So let me turn it over because you probably want to know a little bit about who we are. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Kasia first to introduce first responders and All-In Network and why they're participating in this pitch event. So Kasia.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. It is so exciting to have this officially launched and just to see so many people on this call. I know that this has been in the works for a long time and building on the experience and success of hackathons that have come previously. So just thanking first and foremost the organizers on this call for committing their passion and dedication to this work, and we are just so excited to be part. My name is Kasia Laskowski. I am the Executive Director of the Thrive Global Foundation, which is the philanthropic arm of Thrive, Arianna Huffington's behavior change technology company. From the foundation perspective, I take the behavior change technology and tools that Thrive offers to Fortune 500 companies and their employees, and I bring them to the nonprofit space. But I come to this call representing First Responders First and All in Wellbeing First for Healthcare. First Responders First is an initiative that Thrive launched at the beginning of the pandemic in collaboration with Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health and the Creative Artists Agency, with the very simple yet not so simple mission of caring for our caregivers. We initially started providing basic protections and provisions in the crisis phase of the pandemic, including PPE, free childcare, free accommodations, food, shelters in Navajo Nation, among many other basic protections and provisions for healthcare workers. And alongside that, really taking a page from Thrive's book, also focusing on the mental health support that was needed for healthcare workers during the pandemic to help them really take care of themselves. What we learned in our work with First Responders First over that crucial first year is that even though the mental health supports that we were providing were urgently needed, and we were providing them for free outside of traditional healthcare and insurance providers, the uptake and engagement was very low, which I'm sure is not a surprise to many of you joining us here today. And so we started doing a little bit of digging into really the barriers that exist for healthcare workers and physicians and nurses taking advantage of mental health and well-being resources. And we started to address that through launching our campaign, All in Wellbeing First for Healthcare, which you also see on this page. All In is our most recent initiative that really tackles the idea of prioritizing healthcare worker well-being. And we do that by achieving two main goals. First is advancing solutions to prioritize healthcare worker well-being. This Pitch-A-Thon is the epitome of what we're trying to do with this first goal, really creating innovative solutions that are healthcare worker led. So this example of being nurse led, Linda said it so beautifully, and I could not say it better. Just nurses are at the forefront of these challenges and therefore the solutions. So this is one of the reasons why we're just so excited to partner with these incredible organizations in this Pitch-A-Thon. The second goal of our coalition is really to break down the barriers that exist. So whether that's licensure requirements, whether that's stigma, whether that's all of those different challenges that exist that prevent healthcare workers, physicians, nurses from accessing mental health and well-being resources. That's what we're really trying to tackle from All In. So think about First Responders First being our innovative funding arm that can kind of increase and decrease depending on the crisis, and All In Wellbeing First for Healthcare is really the systems approach to our work, taking a systems level approach to our healthcare worker well-being. And then the other thing that I should mention, in terms of our collaboration here, we're just so happy to be able to sponsor some of the funding behind this, because one of the ways that we've really wanted to step forward during this pandemic and beyond is not just talking about solutions. It's providing the resources to really bring these solutions to life, because we know that you all have incredible ideas. We want to not only support them, we want to encourage them, we want to resource them, and we're just so excited to be a part of this. So thank you so much. I am happy to also answer any questions that may come up.
Linda, why don't you introduce J&J, and then I'm going to have Kathleen, and we'll just go around real quickly and then jump into questions.
Sounds good. So hi, everybody. Linda Benton. I represent Johnson & Johnson and our 125-year commitment to the nursing profession. It's something that we are extremely proud of as a company, because we do believe that nurses are really part of our DNA as an organization. We know that nurses, that as we know it, healthcare as we know it will not function without nurses. And so just a few years ago, we started on this line of really trying to support nurse-led innovation, because we knew that there were so many nurses out there who are, so close in proximity to the challenges that people are facing, that patients are facing. And we know that nurses had amazing ideas, but not necessarily a path forward in order to bring those ideas forward to develop and test and learn. And that's where the concept for NurseHack4Health came from. So we've been behind innovation for quite some time, but we're really excited about being behind this particular endeavor, because as I mentioned earlier, I think it takes it to the next level. And as Rebecca also mentioned, by being able to not only give teams the idea to ideate, work together as an interdisciplinary team, then pitch ideas, which is building skills in and of itself, and then very importantly, get the funding so that you can go take and bring those ideas to life. So J&J is a longtime, advocate for the nursing profession. We couldn't be more excited to be a part of this organization and this team today, bringing this to life. So I'm going to turn it over, I guess, to the Sancio team.
Kathleen, I'm going to have you jump and I'll go last for that.
Sure, no worries. Thank you. Microsoft is honored to be a part of this coalition. We feel it very important. It aligns with our mission, which is our commitment to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And what better way to do that to ensure people are best able to achieve their health and well-being. So I feel that we've essentially been doing this for quite a few years together, and that is our commitment. It goes deep and strong, and I'm honored to be here and representing, and I'd like to thank everyone for having us again this year as a sponsor.
I have to say, my name is Rebecca Love. I'm the president of Sancio, the Society of Nurse Scientists, Innovators, Entrepreneurs and Leaders, which was founded in 2019 by a group of nurse executives around the country who wanted nursing to look differently to the world, to inspire, empower and transform the future of health led through nurse-led innovation. I will be followed by Hume Nadell, who is the president-elect coming in as Sancio. In her day job, she is the first nurse of the Director for Center of Innovations at Mass General Hospital. I also, in my day job, am the Chief Clinical Officer of IntelliCare. But one of the things that you should know is that when all of the pandemic happened, we rolled out Sancio, the pandemic happened, and we started to do meetups with nurses from around the world who were going into these shifts as everything, the world was falling apart. Hundreds of nurses calling in on Zoom saying they were in their shift, leaving their shift, heading into their shift, petrified by what was going on. And it was in those moments where all the world was on fire and nurses were innovating to build and sustain those healthcare systems because everything that we knew was functioning was failing us, that it was then that we recognized nurses were innovating without any direction or support. And then within that first few months of March, April hits, it was then that I called J&J and I called Microsoft and I said, nurses are innovating, we need to do these hackathons. And in 6 weeks' time, we pulled together that first hackathon in that pandemic of May 2020. Over the course of the last 2 years, we hosted 4 virtual hackathons that nurses kept innovating on the front lines of COVID, and why we transitioned to this organization into this next Pitch-A-Thon. But one thing that I also want to share with you about Sancio is that it is 100% virtual run by volunteers, minus hiring our most recent executive director, Nico Scasey, who you guys will all meet, or Sachi, who you'll meet shortly. But the truth is that together we are going to be able to do something here that the world has never seen. You showing up today not only means that you're betting on your health system, but you are betting on changing and creating a sustainable workforce for nursing. So thank you for being here for that. Here's our request to you. We want you to apply. Inspire people from within your health systems to participate. You know that your nurse managers know who those leaders are. Identify them because we know there's such limited resources right now to find ways to actively engage them. Please participate. Spread the word. We are a big believer that a rising tide raises all boats, and the more people who hear about this, the more we're going to change and really educate the greater world about what is going on within nursing and within healthcare. Support your team. We know that leaders are made in times when times are good and that they are really challenged in times when they are struggling. This is your opportunity to breed and support that next generation of leaders, but more importantly, be that leader that we want within all of our health systems. If you don't want to apply, you're not going to be part of a team, apply to be a mentor with us because we are putting together very diverse teams who are going to be working with these applicants and helping them transition and getting across the finish line with their pitch. And lastly, Let's blow this up on social. Please share the content, chime in with your thoughts and experiences, championing these ideas on simple things like congratulations, bravo for participating to, hey, our health system is applying, we're going, and tagging those 12 people that are participating on that team. Let's do something here that's really going to sustain the future of the workforce and show the world that we are taking ownership of a problem that needs a solution. If you have more questions, here's more information. Go to www.nursehack4health.org and reach out to our organizers at support@nursehack4health.org with questions. But now we're actually opening it up to you. So anybody who has questions, we're going to go over, and please chime on in. You can chat, put them in the chat, or raise your hand and you'll be taken off mute. Do we have any questions in the chat there? Let me look right briefly.
Hey, Rebecca, while we're waiting for the questions to come in, one thing that I should have raised that I didn't in my section is just how important it is that the teams that are submitting, not only should be interdisciplinary, but it's really important that your leadership of your health system is in support of the work that you're doing and what you're proposing. Because obviously, if the teams get the funding, the health system has to be ready to then take control of those funds and really help those teams execute the test and learn. So just want to reiterate, please make sure that when your teams are submitting that you've got the support from your senior leadership as well.
The question, I think there was a question that came into me separately, which is what should the size of the teams be and how many people what does an ideal team size look like? Linda, do we want to talk a little bit about what we're looking for on the team size?
I'll actually defer back to you on that, Rebecca, in terms of you've done more of these than anyone.
So what we're looking for in IO things is we really are looking for some executive support. So we're looking for people from all different departments. We need them from your nursing department to your operations department, your finance department, and probably honestly your HSPI, which is basically your systems improvement department, right? You need to have those leaders bought into supporting this process in a way that they're going to sign off to show that this is actually going to take place. There has been a lot of questions. Does the CEO need to sign off on this? And the question is we would love their letter of support to sit there and say, we believe in nurse-led innovation. We believe in championing those words. They don't need to be part of the working team. So those are the things that we're not asking for. But your working team should have letters of support or showing that there are individuals who are going to help eliminate those barriers that exist in health systems to drive them forward. Any other questions?
I see a lot of stuff popping up in the chat.
Can you apply as a region, 6 hospitals, or is it hospital specific? That is a good question. Cassia, Kathleen, Linda.
I was just going to jump in, but I did. I would say yes, to apply as a region. This is really the main focus of this is a systems approach to developing some of these solutions. And so a region is in some ways a system. And so I would think that if it's a solution that can be started in that region and then perhaps scaled elsewhere, that could be a good pilot version of that. So I would say yes, but if anyone else has anything to add to that, please feel free to jump in.
I agree. I think just make sure that you have the ability to collaborate well, right? If you're across a region, so you want to make sure that you have that ability that, you can work time zone syncs and things like that. I think that kind of, there is a question around if this is global or US or nationally or global. I don't know if there's a specific answer to that, Kasia.
Yes, so we have decided to focus nationally. Hopefully in the future we can start to expand outward. But if there are people internationally that would like to participate in some way, there's of course opportunities as mentors as well as some other opportunities to get involved. But for this specific round of funding, we're looking nationally so we can really start to build some evidence-based solutions for the nursing healthcare workforce.
And the question then comes next, can 2 organizations come together to present a hack or a solution or a pitch?
I would say yes, as long as both in terms of the leadership, and I think Kathleen also touched on this, but leadership buy-in and executive sponsorship is so critical because really what we're looking for is sustainable solutions that have been championed by the systems and by the organizations, because that really proves for the long term. What we've seen from First Responders First and All In is that the most successful solutions that have, that take place are those that have not only had executive sponsorship, but also those that have been invested in by different parties, and also across interdisciplinary teams, which is part of the reason why the teams that will be applying are interdisciplinary, because they take into account different voices. So I think that that's also something just to keep in mind if it is multiple systems, ensuring the buy-in, and also ensuring the communication, as Kathleen touched on as well.
And I think the question just came up, which I think is a very good one. Can funds be used for salary support?
Yes, and I think we have some guidelines around that in the criteria as well. So I think we can also share that, or if there's an FAQ we can provide following this.
Please feel free to drop in more questions. Nico, am I missing any?
Nope, you covered them all from the chat.
One of the things that I hope that for those who participate in this, that there will be opportunities for you to network. We're obviously not going to, disclose the ideas that you're working on, but you are going to go to those mentor sessions. And we hope this creates a really positive intercollaboration between those organizations who are working together to also create a greater community for you to work with going forward. So just to let you all know, although this might seem a little bit like a competition, we recognize that there's a lot of opportunities here for you to meet each other and network and actually support each other through processes, answer questions, and also create sustainability going forward as well. So here is another question. I'm working with a large home health agency within a 7+ entity healthcare system. We would like to focus innovations on the interdisciplinary home healthcare agency workforce, specifically given some of the unique challenges and high levels of burnout. Can this apply to home health? I think the other question is, I had several questions come in from nursing homes as well. And Kasia, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so I would, when we first launched First Responders First and also All In, we conceptualized first responders very broadly, of course, within reason. When we first started, we thought about first responders being sort of all frontline workers, especially since there were so many people responding during the pandemic. Because the needs were so great within the healthcare workforce alone, we really took the chance to narrow in on the healthcare workforce. But in the same token, we continue to consider that very broadly, and home care workers are such an incredible part of that. So whether it comes to nursing homes, hospice workers, and also even in palliative care or anything like that, we would consider that to be eligible for this particular funding, because all of these different pieces of this really help our own healthcare system work. And one of the other things I should mention that I meant to reference in my last response to the question is that one of the things that we've learned over time, and in addition to the executive sponsorship, is that from Thrive and also First Responders First and All In, we have tried to really focus on the fact that well-being and mental health needs to be something that is addressed and embedded within the workflow, not something that is considered outside of the workday. And so this approach really, when it comes to working within systems, working within, if there's two hospitals or two organizations working together, I really want to emphasize that point, because the more that you can focus on the demand of what is actually needed by going down to the lowest level of the voices that are asking for that particular solution, the more easily the solution will take root. And I think that that's something that we really want to be able to focus on. So the larger you go, the more difficult it may be to really narrow in on what's needed. So I would just emphasize that starting small, if it is something new that you're trying to pilot, and then looking to scale, that might be something better than really starting to try to tackle a larger solution where you have so many voices in the room that it's really hard to identify what is the solution that will actually address the problem that you're seeking to make change in.
Fantastic. And I think another question that just came in is there a non-disclosure form regarding intellectual property? That's a really good question. Historically in our hackathons that had not been, we did not be, they were sort of open source, but that is a really interesting problem that I don't know, I don't think we've crossed yet. Did we cross that, Nico? I can't remember.
Yes, we did. We actually highlighted on the About page for the Pitch-A-Thon. Towards the bottom, you'll see that in regards to IP, is a no strings attached agreement, and that all the organizers and co-organizers do not acquire any of the IP, as well as the creation and or protection remains the sole responsibility of the inventors, in this case, the teams themselves.
Yes, and I think that's an excellent point. We take no portion of equity within this. This is a very different type of grant also from your traditional grant. We hope that one, it's not as cumbersome as many of that you've applied for, but two, that also your ability to measure success against it is something that we find highly valuable. And this is purely for your success as opposed to us taking equity or owning any portion of it or IP kind of level from there. Might possibly increase greater than one project be funded if monies are available. And yes, we can talk about that. Kasia and Linda, there's a total, actually, we have a larger pool than what we've identified, but Kasia, do you want to speak to how we're looking at this from a funding perspective?
From a funding perspective, so the current award at $250,000, you can receive grant funding up to $250,000. There is the potential for more funding to be awarded, and that $250,000 doesn't necessarily only go to one specific organization. That could fund multiple pitches, but I would say from each organization, it should be one specific project that's being put forth, and that will really just help you, to craft the perfect pitch to really focus on that particular solution. So it would be one application, one pitch per organization, but there are multiple, there might be multiple awards granted out of that budget of $250,000 or greater.
So Susan, good follow-up question, which is there only one award pitch accepted? No, there is potential for a pool above $250,000 in which we'll pull from based on the amount of applications that come in with really good ideas. That being said, we're sort of being fluid in this process at this time. So there may be the top amount of an award that we have committed to is $250,000 to potentially one candidate. But does that also mean that we may have additional funds or different funds if we find that not the project allocates a value of a 250,000, could there be 100,000? Could there be a 50,000? Could there be two projects that justify 25,000? We have some flexibility there. So those are the questions on that.
And I will add, if I could, Rebecca, just one additional piece to it. I would say that we understand, pulling from the four ideas that we're the four sections that we're really looking to fund solutions within those four different buckets. I would say that some of them that you might come across when you're ideating solutions, you may find that your budget exceeds $250,000. I would say that is okay to apply for a greater budget just note that if your solution can still be implemented if you were to receive a portion of funds. But what I will say about that is that this is an opportunity to take these ideas to the leadership of your organization, of your hospital, because what we've been able to do over the last few years is find opportunities to fund projects that have then been matched by the organizations themselves. So if we provided a certain amount of funding, the organization thought it was such a great idea that they were able to match it, or our funding really served as seed funding that allowed for the organization to apply for other grant funding for their project. So think, in terms of what is actually realistically needed for your project to be implemented, and don't hesitate to approach leadership about a matching grant or whatever that might look like. But do be realistic about what you can use, whether knowing that $250,000 would be potentially the limit for us to fund for your particular project, but that there might be other funding available from different channels that you're already familiar with and embedded within.
And question, can previous hackathon idea be pitched again if the idea was not implemented by their healthcare system? And I think the answer would be 100% yes, if you can find the team to actually support that. But Linda, do you want to give some guidance there?
No, totally agree. I think, there's so many ideas that we've seen come through the hackathons, and as long as the concept that you're thinking about fits the criteria of this pitch-a-thon, go for it.
I think we're at time. If there's some more questions, drop those in. But I think what I'll just turn it over is let everybody just do a quick last statement and thoughts. Kathleen, why don't I start with you?
I'd just like to thank everyone for their time. I'm very excited to see what people come up with. This is a huge problem. We have an enormous workforce crisis from, recruitment of students at a young age all the way through to nurses that are working at the bedside every day. So I think we as nurses need to come up with the ideas to really support our profession, and I'm looking forward to everyone's ideas and seeing what they have. Thank you very much.
Linda?
Yeah, equally excited from a J&J perspective. This is our first time, in this pitch-a-thon space. So really excited to get this off the ground. And the one thing that I didn't mention as well that I would like to reiterate is we are going to be very excited to continue to do some storytelling around these concepts as time evolves. So I think, it's one thing for these ideas to come to life, for the teams to get the funding to go do the the test and learns in your institution, but I think there's also a lot of magic when we can really show the world what nurses can do when they're given the resources and the teams and the support to bring these ideas forward. So we're excited. Thank you.
Kasia?
Just reiterating our gratitude for being a part of this process, and also encouraging everyone joining us on this call and those who will be watching following to really just take the time to identify other people that you would like to work with from your organization, and really just take the chance to commit to submitting an idea, because I really do think that this could generate a lot of evidence-based solutions that we can use as a strong foundation for moving our healthcare workforce and our nurse workforce forward.
And, as a nurse myself, I have to thank you all for being here. I've never seen my workforce or my colleagues in such a state of distress as I've seen them in the last 2 years. But even now, currently, I don't think I've seen this level of burnout among my colleagues. I appreciate you all being here, because the truth is, I don't think that any of us expected that in 2022 we'd be facing a 30% of our workforce walking out the door, and that perhaps for the next 10 years we will face the most depressed nursing workforce and a sustainability perspective going forward that we've ever witnessed in the history of our country. So I could not thank Johnson & Johnson, Microsoft, and All In enough for their time. Sancio is a 501c3 organization who just together make something absolutely magical happen. But we could not do this if you weren't here today. So thank you all for being here. Please sign up. Go to NurseHack4Health.org. We can't wait to meet you and see your submissions and see what you're going to accomplish. And we will see you guys. If you have more questions, tomorrow we'll be hosting our first info session at 6 p.m. tomorrow night, and we will all be getting to know each other very well the next few months. So ciao, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.